Hey, so what would you say is at stake in your life right now? Like, let's say a film crew shows up and decides to start following you around for the next 6 months. What keeps the viewer coming back, wondering, on the edge of their seat, wondering, are you going to succeed? Or are you going to fail? Are you going to do the thing or not? Is the goal going to be reached? Is the change going to happen? What's gonna happen? What's at stake? I would argue that if you don't know, or if you live in a way that there is just nothing at stake because you just always stay in the comfort zone, not only would that make for like a low Rotten Tomato score for that movie about your life, it would also leads to boredom for the person living that life, boredom, unfulfillment, that longing for something more. On top of that, when it comes to these things that we want to do, these dreams, these goals, these callings, I think one of the biggest things that holds us back is a wrong relationship to what we see as at stake, right? We overemphasize some things, underemphasize others. And so today I want to talk about how to reframe failure and the kind of work around the fear of failure. How to clearly define what we stand to gain, what we stand to lose. Talking about what is at stake. And man, I've already said the word steak so many times. I feel like I should have gotten like Outback Steakhouse to sponsor this episode. Hey, if they want to send me Outback, if you're watching, if you want to mail me some bloomin' onions, I'll take it. Welcome to episode 4 of Me and the Quest. Well, hey, glad you're here. Welcome to episode 4 of Me and the Quest. This is a show about doing big, meaningful things in the world, making big, important changes in our lives, and ultimately trying to spend as much time as possible doing what we're here on the planet to do. Today's a big day here for me. The day that I'm filming this is also the day that the first episode goes live. So kind of as I look at what an ideal week looks like for me in the new year, Wednesdays are my big Quest Wednesday. I'm kind of thinking of them where every Wednesday a new episode will come out. And then Wednesdays I'm also filming. And so this is episode 4. Episode 1 goes live today. I've already filmed episode 2 and 3, so I'm trying to work a little bit ahead. So yeah, it's just a big day for me here. Excited. I'm surprisingly not that nervous. I'm just mostly looking forward to getting things out. And I haven't really heard too much feedback yet. Still fairly early in the day. I just posted about it a couple hours ago. Yeah, just really excited to get this show going. Every Wednesday morning, new episode in your podcast app or on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, leave reviews, leave comments. All that stuff really, really helps. As I sit here, at the start of this new thing, just this morning, kind of pacing the kitchen after I posted about the show. I've actually, was really trying to put into practice what I want to talk about today. So this is stuff that, I will keep saying it again and again. This is not an expert's opinion. This is sort of field notes from the experience that I'm right in the middle of. And, as recently as a couple hours ago, I was really coming back to this very thing I'm about to talk about. So let's jump into it. Act 1. So in this first segment, we talk about what is it that we want as it relates to this episode, and what's the problem, what's holding us back from that thing. So what we want, this is something we've started to define in the last 2 episodes. Episode 2, we talked about this vision for what could be, how we finish the sentence. Maybe someday I'll get to, blank. What is that vision that we're chasing? And then in last week's episode, we talked about defining the home, the comfort zone, the status quo that we have to leave. Because every hero, inevitably, the hero has to leave home, has to leave the familiar to do the big thing. So what we want is we want to leave home because we've decided that it's worth the discomfort of leaving home to get that vision that we're chasing. What's the problem? Leaving home is really, really hard. It's really hard to leave the familiar, to leave the comfort zone. And so I want to talk about 2 words that come to mind about what kind of keeps us in the comfort zone, keeps us at home. I guarantee you'll relate to these 2 words: fear and complacency. So fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of being misunderstood, fear of finding out that we can't actually do the thing. And, I'm super guilty of this. And I try to do the work to untangle my identity from what it is I do and how it's received. And I'm getting better, but there's still so much overlap for so many of us, right? These things that we want to do are so tangled up in our identity and how we view ourselves that if it's easier to imagine what could be and kind of keep that part of our identity than it is to risk finding out that we actually can't do that thing, that this thing actually isn't true of us. And then that's a blow to how we view ourselves. So that's a whole episode or a whole podcast maybe. But needless to say, fear, right? Fear keeps us at home. The other one is complacency. So here's a few phrases. See if any of these kind of ring true for you. So I'll do it later. Later is the ultimate one, right? That procrastination, that putting it off. I'll do it later. That'd be nice, but it's not worth it. It's not worth the time. It's not worth the risk. It's not worth the potential failure. It's not, it's just not worth it. I already tried that thing and I failed. So I can't, game over. And as we often know, anyone anyone that we look up to as someone we want to follow in the footsteps of, they've always had a long list of failures in their past. But it's really easy for us to be like, well, I already tried that. I already tried a version of that thing and found out I can't do it. So, I'm just going to stay home now. Then there's a couple other, there's denial, which is, I'm not unhappy. I'm good. I'm good right now. But most of the time, and that's good. Being content is good. And I'm trying to be content more in my life. But contentment can also kind of overstep its boundaries and kind of get in the way of what you're meant to do, right? You can still be content. Something I'm trying to do, this show about doing things and chasing, and the built into that idea is that we're going somewhere we're not there yet. I'm also trying to be really good about staying present, being content, having gratitude for where I am. You can do both. And so don't overcorrect and just be like, no, I'm good. Life's good. And push to the side what you're supposed to do, what you're here on the planet to do. And then kind of related to that is some other people kind of feel more guilt. I shouldn't take, I shouldn't spend that much time on myself. I shouldn't put that effort in. I shouldn't risk this because it's too selfish, or it might, some people might not get it. It might offend them or bother them, or might disrupt the status quo too much. So those two words, fear and complacency, that's what's keeping us at home in our comfort zones. So let's get into Act 2. I want to talk about a mindset change, some ways to kind of flip the script here and overcome these two things. So in the first 3 episodes, we used this segment of the show to talk about what we need to prevail to overcome the problem and get what we want. In this case, to overcome fear and complacency and leave our comfort zones to do the big thing we long to do. But I'm actually going to push back that practical thing. We're going to talk about how to overcome fear and complacency in a second. It's going to be more than a second. It's going to be a few minutes. But we're going to talk about that in the final segment. But first, I want to walk us through 4 layers of defining what's at stake in our story. And this is really important because when we hear what's at stake, we only tend to think just natural human survival instinct. We only think about what's going to go wrong. It's sort of just self-defense, self-protection mode. We think about, going into the job interview, going into the date, posting the thing online. We think about all the things that could go wrong. And that is actually the first one. So I want us to start with this. We're not going to stay here, but I want to start with, let's get honest about what failure will actually look like. What would failure in the context of the thing you want to do, what's that going to look like? Is it embarrassment? Is it wasted, seemingly wasted time or effort or money? Is it a hit on your identity I talked about, right? That one stings. Is it just going to kind of sting? Is it going to set you back about how you see yourself if you can't do that thing? just start to think about what failure actually looks like. Because also, I think when we keep failure really nebulous, it's more scary. So even though it can be a little bit uncomfortable at first to really think about what it would look like, what it would really feel like to fail, it actually kind of makes it more manageable when you can define it. So what's at stake if we fail? What is actually at stake if we fail? Like I said, it's just one of 4. So we got 3 more, and we're going to kind of use these to balance out that fear of failure. Next is, what will we definitely not get if we stay home? So leaving the comfort zone to do the thing, that results in all this potential and all this unknown. But there is one thing we can actually know. There are things that will not happen, will not change. Adventures we could have, positive impacts on the world that we could, leave behind. There are those things that we can know will not happen if we don't do anything, if we don't leave what's familiar and safe. So instantly what this is going to start to do is balance out that fear of failure, because now we're going to define what we know we are not going to get. What is at stake if we do nothing? And this is a lot of those quest movies where there's something forcing the hero into action, right? Moana just deciding to, sail the 7 seas for a little fun isn't the same as Moana having to leave because whatever the black stuff that's creeping up and going to destroy the whole island. And it's starting to, these Disney movies are always so dark if you really think about it and play it out. Like, it's starting to get rid of their food source. They're on an island and it's kind of coming from all directions to encompass them in this black death. That's dark and scary. My toddler loves it though. If you just put the Dwayne Rock Johnson rapping in it, then it feels happy. But this is what we want to do for our own life, right? Like, view that home, view that starting place as, start to see something kind of creeping in and forcing us out of it. Like, this is never going to happen if you just stay home. So those are the first 2. What does failure actually look like? And then what will I definitely not get if I don't do anything? What do I stand to lose if I do nothing? Then, what do I stand to gain if I succeed? What do I personally stand to gain if I succeed? And again, we talk about this, we think about this, but generally, the majority of our energy is going to be spent on what will happen if I fail. What's going to happen if I fail? I can't fail. Oh no, I'm going to fail. And then we stay home. So what if we could even just start to balance that out for it was more 50-50 and not like 99% to 1%? What if it was more 50-50, that sometimes we acknowledge like the fear of failure and we kind of use that fear in a healthy way to navigate and to avoid the potential pitfalls and like use fear as a tool, but then balance that with, okay, but what do we stand to gain? Like, we got to keep our eye on all the things we stand to gain if we do this thing. Then the 4th one, zoom out a bit. What does the world stand to gain from me taking the action? And again, this is what's great about all these movies we love, right? It's not just about the hero. The hero goes through transformation. The hero lives a meaningful life. The hero does the thing that they're meant to do and thus feels fulfilled. And but it's not just about the hero most of the time. It's the hero saving their family, saving the world. And a lot of like all the superhero movies and, in Star Wars, they're saving entire galaxies and planets and, however much you want to zoom out, it couldn't get much bigger, right? They're saving everything. So what's our version of that? Like, what impact are we going to leave? And like, this is something that if you do have kids, or even if they're not your kids, if you just have some kids you care about, like, this is something that's really helped me be a little bit more brave, is thinking about, it might be uncomfortable for me and I might experience some failure, but man, what I stand to gain if I can do this and this for my kid, and I can model this for my kid, I can provide this experience for my kid. That'll make a huge difference. So zoom out a little bit. Like, what does your kid, what does your partner, what does your community, what do the people who need what you have to offer, what do they stand to gain by you doing the hard thing? All right, so there's the 4 elements of what's at stake. It's not just about what do I stand to lose here if I fail. So it's that whole balanced approach now. All right, so one more time before we move on, the 4 things. What is at stake if I fail? What will failure actually look like? Start to define that. What do I stand to lose if I do nothing? Because doing nothing is an action, right? Inaction is a choice. What do I personally stand to gain from success? And then what does the world around me stand to gain from my doing the hard thing? Right? More balanced approach, right? It's instantly starting to feel more like we can start to make some choices and not just be crushed by that one version of what's at stake, which is what do I stand to lose? What's failure going to do to me? Now it's more balanced, and we can kind of use this toolkit, these 4 things, to overcome fear and complacency. So let's talk about that. Act 3. All right, so let's talk about how we use those 4 things we just defined to overcome fear and complacency that are keeping us home, keeping us in our comfort zones, and preventing us from doing the big things we're meant to do. So let's talk about fear. Fear is an over-identification with what we stand to lose if we fail. But as we just talked about, we can balance that out. We can make it so that it's not just about what we stand to lose if we fail. It's also about what we stand to lose if we don't even try. It's also about what we stand to gain as individuals and what the world stands to gain from us doing the thing. And now it's more balanced. Now, yeah, that fear of failure is still there, but I'm also being honest with myself about what I'm going to lose if I do nothing. Like the clock is ticking, right? And I will lose, I will miss out on things. The world will lose and miss out on things if I only stay home. And then let's balance it, right? Let's balance it out with what we stand to gain. What are the positive things that we can walk toward? What does the world need from us? What can we bring to the world if we do our thing? So hopefully that helps. If you feel crippled by fear, out of fear and just sort of complacency, if it's you're like, no, it's fear. Like I want to do the thing and it's fear. I feel it, viscerally. Try that. Try to acknowledge, start with this idea that maybe you are over-identifying with what you stand to lose if you fail, and start to balance that with these other ones. And then complacency is basically where we arrive when we don't talk about those other 3 things. Complacency is what happens when we don't think about what we stand to lose if we do nothing. Complacency is what happens when we don't think about what we stand to gain and what the world stands to gain from us actually taking action. If you start to say and define clearly for yourself that like, hey, doing nothing, just doing the same old for infinity, and newsflash too, like we don't have infinity, right? Like the clock is ticking. I don't want to be too like morbid, but we've only got so much time here. So we don't have forever, and just sitting at home, like we are going to miss out on things, and the world is going to miss out on what we have to offer. So if you just start to get honest about that, you don't really have a way to stay complacent anymore. All right. So I hope something here was helpful. I hope that something I said today can help you beat back fear and complacency, help you leave home, do the thing that you're meant to do. Don't go anywhere. It's time for the epilogue. The epilogue is the part of the show at the end of the show, casual conversation at the end of the show. Today I'm talking about my thoughts on Pixar's Soul. It made me cry like quite a lot, like pretty weepy. I want to talk about a few reasons why I think it really resonated with me so much. What it was that triggered a bit of a cry fest. So on YouTube, the epilogue will be popping up on the screen somewhere in a separate video. You can click on that. If you're listening on the podcast, just sit back for those few seconds of a little musical interlude, and we'll be in the epilogue. See you there.